is a lovely song. It's called "On Your Shore," and one of the monks that I was in the monastery with for about 4 years before he took a different turn. And this was one of his songs that he wrote when he was really struggling, and it's always captured my heart. I stumble here on this song. To reform and research these roads so sharp that I your face from in these hazy falls like misty fall. Oh, you draw a silent breath and raise this blinding dawn. And raise this blinding mother, free me, and anchor me on your shore. Please, Lord, please, Lord, lead me on. I am falling from your streets and roads to endless chaos that was your end. So live me, and anchor me on your shore. Please, Lord, hold my hand, lead me on. Me, and anchor me on your shore. So shine upon this lonely heart and raise my spirit like holy waves on an icy mountain.
Beautiful. Thank you, Swami. Yes. I'll make a couple of announcements before we get started. Swami will be speaking this afternoon at 4 p.m. I put a little flyer about it on the WhatsApp group that he was invited by Gita Narota, and it's the center. Right? Say that again. I think you said 5 o'clock. So, no, it's at 4 o'clock. It's at the Sadhu Bhaswani Center, Atlanta. It's from 4 to 5:15. And then it's followed by Langar Prasad. They've asked that if you'd like to come, to please RSVP so that they know how much food to prepare. So everybody is welcome to join for that. And the announcement yesterday got all Swami's lunches filled up. So if anyone would like to bring dinner for Swami and have dinner with him between Arati and class, he has class every evening at 7:30. He is available for that several evenings. And if you want to have any private time with him, just let me know. I'm scheduling that. You can email me or let me know in person, either one. Would you like to introduce him again, Joey? There might be some folks that weren't here for the introduction yesterday.
Swami, have you ever done your own song? Composed any song?
I did one, and I sang it once, and I've never pulled it out again. So I don't know where it is.
Maybe one time we can share it with us.
Yeah, I could find it. Yeah.
Well, some of you do know, I think, Swami Chidvananda, he has been here before, but for those of you who don't, he became a monk in the Ramakrishna order in 1999. He studied at length with Swami Ashoka Prabhupada in San Francisco, and he is here this week, as Joji has told us. He's currently posted, he spent some time in Colorado at a center there. He's now in Santa Barbara. And for those of you who don't know, the Santa Barbara Vedanta community is actually a convent. There's been nuns there for something like 30, 40, 50 years. 70 years. And so Swami is now the only monk there and speaks there once a month. And we're just really delighted to have you here. I think that's all I can say about you. Say the rest. Hey.
So today it might help.
Sure.
With the rooms.
All right.
And I think just Uma is sharing her screen.
All right. This is good. I'm never loud enough.
Uma will stop. Yeah, I think this happens before. That's this is our experience. Oh. They really get there. I just shut her screen.
No, it's loose. It just needs, this thing needs to be loosened and then but it's all right. It'll work. I won't go crazy, too crazy.
Okay. She managed to take
I should have combed my hair this morning.
I think the microphone's a little bit far.
Oh, too far? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Very nice. Ah, here we are. So I always used to start my lectures with a Hafiz poem because you know, before I had found spiritual life and before I had the courage to try it again after my failed attempts in my youth, I was in a book, Aardvark Books, on which is no longer there, thanks to Amazon, on Church Street in San Francisco, and I found this beautiful little book that was bound in gilt letters. It was just the right size. You know, if you're a book lover, there's always a particular size of a book and a weight of a book that you just can't resist when you see it on the shelf. And this book called out to me, and I pulled it out, and it was called "The Subject Tonight is Love." And it was all some poems from Hafiz, translated by Daniel Ladinsky. And in the poem that I flipped open to, God was a bartender in the divine tavern, and he was serving out drafts of divine bliss to all of these worldly people at the counter. And there was a prostitute at the counter, there was a sailor with a mouth on him at the counter, and some other people. And it was just the interaction between the bartender and these folks struggling through life. And it changed my whole world, actually, because God had always been over there demanding things of me that I either couldn't or wouldn't give to him at the level that I believed in that presence at that time in my life. And it was the first time that I had ever seen God come into the world that I lived in, and to use the things that I was familiar with and that I saw, and had them representing what I was really looking for in those divine drafts, you know, at the bar. That there's a wonderful poem by Hafiz where he says, "Dear one, do you not know that every desire of your body is holy? Every desire of your body is holy." And he says it 3 times, and that made me think he really meant it. But I was confused because I had never heard such a daring thing, that every desire of my body was holy. How could that possibly be?
H-O-L-Y.
H-O-L-Y, yeah. And what he was alluding to is the fact that all of our desire is for God and has always been for God. But we have found his name reflected in objects. You know, the drinking alcohol was a substitute for not having that divine bliss, that divine connection. Friends were a substitute for not having that inner fullness, that inner completeness. My quest for intimate relationships was for that lack of oneness, that lack of finding my place in the world. And when I began to understand what he was saying, I thought that was the most beautiful thing. And it helped me to understand Ramakrishna when he said that until you can gather all of those forms of love, you know, as a chaste a husband for his chaste wife, and for, you know, the mistress for her paramour, a child for its mother, you know, yes, all those forms of love, that you have to gather them all together. And I always thought that you had to somehow produce all of that love of that same quantity for God. And later I understood, as over the years passed, that really what he's talking about is growing by understanding that the thing that makes you desire all of those other forms of love is the fact that you see God in those forms of love, that you find. That's why he says, for the sake of God, the wife is loved, you know, for the sake of the presence of God in the husband is loved. And that is the process. It's not creating a love out of nothing for God. It's gathering all of the love that you have confused God with in objects. And one of the meanings of discernment that we have to go through is to take a look at our desires and to walk around them very carefully until we can see the name of God that is causing us to be attracted to that object, and then to do the work of abstracting that name out of the object and finding it within ourselves, to realize that everything in the external world is merely a reflection of our divine nature, a reflection of ourself, and that we have to come to know that we're the whole reflection. You know, so everything that you're seeing right now is the divine self within you that you're seeking, reflected on your mind. And you don't see it that way because it's being prismed through an ego, through a thought of yourself that you've planted in your head, that you live as in the world, obeying your gender, obeying your age, obeying your nationality, and all of your list of attributes. And so this divine love, which is everywhere present, calling out to us sometimes, is that beauty, that wonder of life, and the call of the beloved, the divine. And that we don't have to shun things away and be ashamed of the desires and be ashamed of the wants. We just have to take our eyes off of the objects that are representing them and return to that which is being reflected, to find them in ourselves. And so in that, I always mention that the three most important things as I've surveyed the world's religions in my life have been the first one from Thakur, when he says that earnestness and sincerity are the most important things in spiritual life, which I really love. That has nothing to do with a belief, that has nothing to do with a dogma or a creed, or a personality. But the one most important thing is your sincerity, your earnestness, that you really are interested in knowing the truth, and you're earnest about finding it. I heard a Swami say, define earnestness in a very challenging way that really caused me to have to grow, actually. He said, how do you know if you're earnest for something? He says, you're earnest about the things you choose to do when you have nothing else to do. Those are the things you're earnest in. And I started to think, wow, I have nothing else to do. Well, I'm earnest in my solitaire game, you know. I'm earnest in my YouTube video. And I really had to look at my life and think, wow, where is your heart, that you don't choose to pick up, you know, a holy book, or choose to go into prayer, or choose to spend some extra time meditating. And it was a great challenge, a great lesson for me to learn that. So that's the most important thing. Swami Ramakrishna says that those things, if you're earnest and sincere about finding something, God will take care of getting you there. He says it's like if you earnestly are trying to find your way to the grocery store in a new town, if you walk out the door and you're earnest about finding the grocery store, you're going to ask, you're going to look, you're going to keep walking, and you're going to find that grocery store. And so if you're earnest in your spiritual life, if it's what you choose to do in your free time, if it's something you love in a sincere way, you'll find your way quickly. And this problem that we have of taking so long, you know, to find God, to realize God, is not God's slowness in reaching us. It's our lack of earnestness and sincerity that gives us that extra time to learn from the world. And so if you ever want to speed the journey along, then polish your sincerity, polish your earnestness. The second one is truth. The second one, and these are not in order of importance, they're all number one, but I can't say them all at once. The second one is truth. And we say, well, what is truth? Well, we know truth when we see it, we know it when we hear it. And what it really is within us, that which speeds us along, is that integrity, your inner integrity, that your words, your thoughts, and your deeds are in alignment. There's no hypocrisy in you. You're not saying one thing and living another. You're not thinking one thing and saying another. But the three of those things are in alignment. You are what you appear to be, and that you're always what you appear to be. You know, one of the things I know, especially in Western culture, is we've got all these personas We've got our work friends, and we joke about having a work wife or a work husband, you know. And then we've got our bar friends, and we've got our school friends, we've got our church or temple friends, you know, and we all have a different emphasis or a different presentation of ourselves within all of those. In some of them, we hide aspects of ourselves, and in others, we bring out aspects of ourselves. And to be a person of truth is to be what you are. That people that meet you with one set of friends and then see you in the office see the same person. You're always respectful, you're always loving, you're always kind, you're always concerned, you're always reaching out to be a help to someone else's vision, helping someone to reach their highest ideal, right? That our life slowly as we transform becomes thou and thine, right? Our concern and thoughts are of others. We're looking for everybody else's success at the office. We're not grabbing, you know, attention and trying to get credit for things that we might not even have done, or even to be parts of teams that are successful, but that we are actively trying to make everyone around us successful, giving them our secrets, sharing our successes, sharing our work, sharing our insights. So to have that kind of integrity inside is one of the most important things. And then the third one, of course, from Jesus and from actually all the traditions, is love. Right? Swamiji says, if you want to know how spiritual you are, there's only two questions you need to ask yourself. Number one, am I unselfish? To the degree that you are unselfish, to that degree you are spiritual. And he said the second one is very like it, but it's proactive. Am I loving? Not just unselfish, but am I proactively loving? You know, the Peace Pilgrim, if you've ever heard of her, she's a wonderful nun who walked out of her house in the 50s and never returned, and said she would wander until she was offered shelter, and that she would fast until she was offered food, and that she would speak of nothing but inner peace. You know, and she lived that life, and she said that she lived her life as God's butler. You know, if you watch these good old time period shows on on Netflix, the butler, you know, would stands at attention in the corner of the dining room and is aware of everything going on in that room and is always looking for an opportunity to serve, right? And so we are to take that role in this world. That's what it means to be loving, is to stand in the corner and watch and be aware of everything going on in your office, who's sick, whose daughter is graduating, whose birthday it is, who's not there that day, you know, all of these things. You're the one that puts flowers on the desk of the person who comes back from vacation. You know, you're the one that puts the little piece of chocolate on their birthday on the desk, and just always looking for that opportunity to be loving, to be encouraging. So those are the three most important things, and I always put them first because sometimes we forget those three most important things and we get caught up in philosophies and definitions and things. Yes.
So, Mr. Wilson, what's the name?
Oh, her name's Peace Pilgrim. That's all she went by, Peace Pilgrim. You can go to peacepilgrim.org, and if you don't know of this woman, I heavily encourage you to look her up. We're going through her book. We just started last week on Monday nights in my online class, if you want to join in on it. Excellent, yes. And if you want a copy of it, peacepilgrim.org gives away those books. They refuse to even take a donation. You just go and say you want the book and they'll send it to you free of charge and won't even give you an opportunity to donate. So she did not belong to any particular tradition, and she didn't renounce because of God or because of religion in any way. She renounced and walked out of her house because she was desperate of the condition of the world, that at that time, nuclear, the nuclear threat was the Cold War era, and she was terrified of what humanity was doing to itself. And so she knew that there couldn't be world peace until we learned to have inner peace. And so she literally walked out of her life, walked out of her house one day with a blue apron on, a comb, a pen, and a little pad of paper in her pocket. And that's all she had. That's all she owned. And she walked back and forth across this country something like 8 times, something like 14,000 miles. Those numbers are estimates at the top of my very unparticular mind. that was her dedication. And she had multiple spiritual experiences along the way, even though it technically was not a spiritual endeavor for her. And so I find her to be so pure because she didn't do it just for an ideal. She did it for you, for me, for humanity, and walked out of a really very pure source of love. So if you haven't heard of her, if you don't know her story, you will be inspired. She represents everybody who has a heart with no creed or dogma. And her only concern was how to find your inner peace. So I encourage you to look for that. All right, so here's my poem from Hafiz for the day. Tired of speaking sweetly. Love wants to reach out and manhandle us, to break all of our teacup talk of God. If you had the courage and could give the beloved his choice, some nights he would just drag you around the room by your hair, ripping from your grip all of those toys in the world that bring you no joy. Love sometimes gets tired of speaking sweetly and wants to rip to shreds all of your erroneous notions of truth that make you fight within yourself, dear one, and with others, causing the world to weep on too many fine days. God wants to manhandle us, lock us inside of a tiny room with himself and practice his dropkick. The beloved sometimes wants us to do a great favor. He holds us upside down and shakes all of the nonsense out. But when we hear he is in such a playful, drunken mood, most everyone I know quickly packs their bags and hightails it out of town. So yes, sometimes there's a space and time for words. This lecture this morning is a new one for me. I've given it once before in Santa Barbara, but it was born out of a new alignment of my sails on my boat of practice. I had kind of gotten to a place where I couldn't seem to just move forward. You know, my practice had been the same for quite some time. It was starting to not really be inspiring. It started to be a lot of work and a lot of discipline. And I wasn't touching much in there that was making me feel like I was moving. And so I took some time to really back off from the type of practice I was doing. And just to share it with you for fun, I decided that I would get up in the mornings and instead of immediately, I used to just go do my shower and then immediately go to the shrine and sit and do my japa for my set amount of time. And I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get up, I'm going to shower, and I'm going to go make a cup of coffee. And I'm going to take that coffee into the shrine with me. And I'm going to sit there in front of the beloved and we're going to have a little conversation. I'm going to read some poetry. I'm going to pray a little bit. I'm going to sing a little bit. I'm just going to enjoy the presence of God. And that changed everything for me. Because from that space, once the heart was opened, once I'd had some singing and had my coffee, to sit there and then begin my japa, to begin my practice, it was in a completely different mood, a completely different effort. It was an effort that was inspiring and happy and sweet. And so I began thinking about it and began picking up some of my books around my room and kind of looking at them and found some verses that I've arranged that helped me move forward in that and has taken my practice in a very different and very beautiful direction. This first one is from that book I've mentioned yesterday quite a few times, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, which made a big impact on me. And again, I recommend it if you haven't read it. And if you have read it, read it again, because it's got wonderful, wonderful pointers in it. In there, he tells the story of a young practitioner named Baso, who's approaching his teacher, or his teacher has approached him and asked him, "What are you doing?" "I'm practicing meditation," Baso replied. "Well, why are you practicing meditation?" "I want to attain enlightenment. I want to be a Buddha," the disciple said. "Do you know what the teacher did?" "Well, he picked up a tile and he began to polish it." And Baso, his disciple, asked, "Well, what are you doing?" "I want to make a jewel," he said. "How is it possible to make a jewel from a tile?" Baso asked. And his teacher asked, "How is it possible to become a Buddha by practicing meditation?" this idea, that the Buddhist doesn't practice for a goal. And that he says the Buddhist does not meditate to realize God, that he practices to know that he's already realized. And I began to meditate on that and think about that for a while. Our teacher here goes on to say, he says, as long as you think you are practicing for the sake of something, that's not real practice. That's not true practice. And I began to think about that and to kind of roll that around in my head thinking, well, God, that's what I'm doing. I'm meditating to realize God, I'm hoping to come to this knowledge. And I thought, how is it possible that that's not true practice? And I began to realize, well, that's really spiritual materialism. You're still giving something in exchange for something else. You're still working towards something, begging for something, wanting something. And this different attitude of coming to know that you are already realized, that you have always been realized, the idea of realization is that it's not an attainment, it's a realization of an isness, of something. It's realizing your cell phone's in your back pocket when you looked all over the house for it. That's what realization is. That's why they don't call it attainment or call it, an achievement. And you marry that with what Ramakrishna says. He says, you're not the doer, right? Well, I hear that all the time. I don't know what it means. I think it means in two different ways. I've thought of possibilities. What does it mean not to be the doer? One is that if this world really is like a dream, then you think you're the doer, but nothing's being done. You build a house in your dream, you wake up, it's not there. You go swimming, you wake up, you're not wet, right? And so this idea of the world as a dream could be one possibility. The other one is Vivekananda says that you're led by your desires. Right? And I tell my pizza story at that point. It's like, you smell pizza, and so suddenly it's lunchtime, and what do? You go find a place to eat pizza. And you think, oh, I went to eat pizza. No, you didn't. You just followed the promptings, right? And as long as we live in a world thinking that we're the body and the mind, all of our activities are coming from promptings, Your desires arise, usually because some sensation, the smell of pizza, the sight of a beautiful person, you pass your favorite bar, whatever these things are in the world, and they grab your attention, and there you go, thinking that you're free to make your choices, right? I remember one morning I was doing a practice where I was kind of touching one part of my body at a time, and I was going, okay, I'm really paying attention to that. That's my head, okay? You are not your head. So I really tried to grab that idea. And then I went to my nose, okay, my face. You are not this. So I tried to remove my attention from that, to withdraw it from that. And I just went all the way down to my toes, one body part at a time. And it was very successful in the sense that I got a wonderful sense of calm, a wonderful sense of peace, and a wonderful sense of freedom. And when I was stood up from doing that practice and just enjoyed that kind of moment of relaxation, that moment of openness, of freedom, the thought came to my mind, oh, I feel so free. And then the first thought that followed it was, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with this freedom? And that's when I understood. Freedom is its own gift. It's not free to do what you want. It's free to have no want. That just standing there, enjoying freedom is enough. That they don't have to replace a fulfilled desire with a new desire. And so in our practice, there's this idea that we don't have to attain. We don't have to try and strive for something. And so what does that turn your practice into? It turns it into a communion, to an enjoying the presence of God, to enjoying the idea of love, thinking about love, wondering and poking at the idea of an unconditioned love, and thinking about, well, what does that look like? What if I loved my wife or my husband unconditionally, which means I demanded nothing and expected nothing in return? What would that look like? And could I actually do that? What if they abused me? Or what if they were rude to me? Or what if they were in a bad mood and, messed up my kind words with anger? overcooked my eggs or something. Right? Because I shared with you yesterday, I guess, that I thought I was popular when I joined the monastery. I thought I had a ton of friends, right? And when I joined, Prabhupada was a very, very strict center, that center there in Hollywood. They used to call it the Gulag. I found out when I was posted to Hollywood. And so San Francisco is very strict, and Swami only had one rule, though. He just said that I couldn't initiate contact with anybody outside the monastery. They could call me, they could visit me, but I couldn't initiate. I couldn't be the first. And as I told you yesterday, I never heard from him. All of the people that I knew, except for two, those two, and I'm still in touch with both of them. One became a monk and one became a Vedanta. He's now cutting hair in North Carolina. But just that one rule broke all of my worldly relationships, all the people that I thought were my friends, all the people that I thought were there to support me. Just that one rule of not being the first to reach out was enough to lose them all. So you have to sit and think in your relationship with the beloved, it's the one love that has no condition for you. And that's a scary thought. I grew up a Christian, and I was told that if I didn't have a fear of hell in me and a fear of God, I actually saw in the airport the other day this guy on the back of his T-shirt, and on the back of his hoodie, it said, the one thing, fear of God. That was what it said on his T-shirt. And I was like, whoa, whoa, boy, do I remember those days. It was terrible to live in that fear, right? And Vivekananda says all religion begins in that fear, but he said it ends in love. It ends in an expansion. And when I sat there and thought about a love without condition, and I thought, God, that gives me all kinds of permission, right? All kinds of permission. And then suddenly I felt that fear. Oh my God, if I don't fear God, I'm going to be an evil person. And so we were afraid of the idea of an unconditioned love. We're afraid that we'll take advantage of it. We're afraid that we'll abuse it. We're afraid that our nature is wicked, and so we'll run after wickedness by nature. But if we hang with that thought, you come to realize that that's half of a meditation, half of a response, right? You think of a lover, if your husband or your wife or your partner treated you perfectly, with great love and never demanded anything in return from you, never had any expectation for you, would your first response really be how to cheat on them? Really? Of course not. That's absurd, right? What would happen? You would be inspired. You'd be fumbling to try and be half as good a lover back. You'd be like watching yourself and think, oh, look what he did tomorrow I'm gonna do this, right? Because in the beginning, we would still be thinking transactionally, right? We'd still be trying to respond to this love. And that's the key. That's what brings us forward. And so our meditation does not become about a grasping or a gaining or a giving. It's trusting the nature of this universe, trusting the nature of the beloved, to be love without a condition for you. And yes, you do have freedom to explore. You have to explore to do your discernment, to take a very close look at the things that you're attracted to ask the questions and have the space to learn from your mistakes, and to find your way honestly so that you're not renouncing before you're ready to renounce. Ramakrishna says if you try and cut off a fruit before it's ripe, it's never going to be sweet. And so discernment is giving you the space. The love of God is giving you the space to learn from this world, to find that divinity within yourself. And you have to break your addictions to the externals. You have to break your delusions that there's something out there for you to get, something out there that's going to add to you or take from you. To know that there is nothing in the world that can touch you, that can change you, that can lift you or fulfill you. You have to find it within yourself. That this lie of Cinderella, to understand that it's a lie. That this Disney movie that tells you your Prince Charming is there, or that your princess is there, and that another person is going to fulfill your life. No wonder the divorce rate is 60%. Who of us wants to be tied to someone who's depending on us to fulfill their life, right? To make them happy. You look at these dating ads, it's all, everybody's looking, I want somebody, you know, who likes this, and I'm looking for somebody who does this, and I want that. Nobody's putting an ad out there of what they're going to bring to the table. They're just putting their wants, their list of you better, I'm looking for, right? Find somebody that, you know, of course, I would say don't look at all out there. There's nothing for you to find. But if you simply must, go through those ads and narrow it down real quick by looking for the ads that are offering something. I'm looking for someone that I can work with to make them successful in life, that I can support and love, and be a partner with, you know, somebody that I can be a giver to. If you find someone like that, be the same person in response, and then you'll be part of the 40% instead of the 60%. Look for the welfare of the others. And so in our relationship with God, when you sit to meditate, don't be hungry. Don't go and grab at God to try and get your allowance right away. You know, I want this, and I'm sitting here for this, and I expect to realize you, and why is it taking so long? You're on a date. Right? Well, suppose you're on a date with a person and you're like, why do we have to wait so long to get married? Come on, let's get this going. We've already gone out 4 times already. All right, what's going to happen? There's not going to be a 5th time. Right? You're on a date. Why? To get to know each other, to enjoy each other. You pick fun activities to do together, things that will put you in situations where you find out new things about each other. That's what your practice is. That's what your practice is. It's going in and enjoying the presence of God that is in you, that you may not have found yet, you may not have touched it yet, but that's why faith is the fundamental thing, the one necessary thing. Because you have to learn what unconditioned love is, because no one has ever shown it to you. Nothing in this world has ever given it to you. So faith is believing in an ideal that the world cannot teach you, whether that's of your immortality or your own infinity, of your own unconditioned love, or the presence of the divine, something unchanging and eternal. Faith is about investigating and having the idea that, you know, when you go to your calculus class, you do your homework because there's a certain amount of faith that the teacher's taking you somewhere, that you're going to learn something, right? So you have to have a faith in something you don't know in order to learn it. And so you sit in the presence of the beloved. You bring a flower and you make a thing of giving, you know, just like you do on your date. You don't just like, here's a flower, toss on the table, right? It's always, right? And how many of us offer to God like that? You know, we have a religious way of offering. Right? There's none of the life in it. There's no fun in it. There's no life in it. Your practice has become work. Your practice has become dry, right? You're afraid to talk to God. You're afraid to tell him the joke that you laughed at work because it wasn't a good one, you know. But you remember Ramakrishna, right? Ramakrishna, the devotees jumped on him for telling dirty jokes to the young men. And what was his response? They're young men. They need a little fish soup every now and then. Right? There's room for being human. There's room for being a personality and being who you think you are at the moment. And on that date with the beloved, slowly, 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 you will be inspired to be less afraid, to be less bored, to be less presumptuous, less serious, and start enjoying this world. Ramakrishna Vivekananda said a very important thing to me anyway, because I definitely had this idea that religion was out there to destroy my fun, right? To basically go through and pick out all my favorite things and tell me I can't do them. That's how I started in this world, right? But Vivekananda says religion is not there to take away your enjoyment. So religion is there to teach you how to enjoy so that you don't get stuck. How to enjoy the world so that you don't get stuck in it. And what is it to enjoy the world? It's to find that perfect partner to share it with, the beloved, the divine, to make God a real solution in your life. I remember that story I always tell. I was in the monastery in San Francisco, and it was an old Victorian, and we weren't allowed out after dark, and if we went out, we had to go out with somebody else. But then Greg, who was my other brahmachari there for the first 4 years, left, right? And he'd been gone for 6 months, and I'd been rattling alone in this 100-year-old Victorian by myself, no stereos, no television, just a lot of books and old men hanging around. And I was standing there at the top of the stairs one day, and I was, in the gloom of my life thinking, oh God, I can't do this. This is horrible. And I was leaning on the railing at the top of the stairs, looking at that picture of Jesus actually the original painting that Ramakrishna was standing in front of when Jesus came out of the painting and entered into his heart. That painting hangs in the monastery in San Francisco, and I used to walk by it quite regularly and be like, 15 years I walked by that painting. No light ever came out of it. No bliss that put me in ecstasy with Ramakrishna. I just looked at that painting. But I was standing at the top of the stairs in a terribly depressed mood, thinking, how am I going to do this for 10 years? Just to have a time like, 10 years alone in this musty old building, with just Swami. Swami was pushing 80 at the time. I was like, what am I going to do for 10 years? And at that time, Swami came in from next door, and we had sort of a veranda with this beautiful winding staircase that went down to the vestibule there. And he came in and he looked up and saw me standing there at the top of the railing. And he said, oh, what is this? And as he started to climb the stairs, I told him, Maharaj, I said, I am so depressed and I feel so lonely. And I just don't think I can do this. And he came up the stairs, and I was expecting, a little tap on the back, maybe a hug, maybe like, you're going to be all right, kid, What did he do? He walked right by me. Not a word. Walked right by me, went into his room and began to close the door. And just before the door closed, he looked out and he said in the most matter-of-fact way, so go to the shrine, and shut the door. And of course, at first I was furious. I was like, that guy doesn't think anything of me. He doesn't care if I leave. I should leave. I should just show him, see where his breakfast comes from tomorrow. Right? But I went to the shrine, and I sat in the shrine, and I sat there in my mood, and I prayed, but only half-heartedly because I was hurting. And I sat there and I learned that day, as Mother moves in the shrine, all of us have that experience. And I just understood that I didn't believe in God, that God had never been an actual solution to a real problem in my life. He'd always been an idea, always something out there. But that when I was depressed, it never even occurred to me to go to the shrine for a solution to my depression, to go to the shrine for a solution to my loneliness, to go to the shrine for just the dark times, or even to go to the shrine to share a success or to share a good mood. I saw that day that here I was living in a monastery and I had no real belief in God, in this divinity. And it changed my life that day. It changed my life and God became real. To the point, I've got some amazing stories to tell at some point about that lesson, about learning that. So as long as you think you are practicing for the sake of something, it's not true practice. So a questioner, a young man, is talking to the Holy Mother. And Mother, he says, Mother, the mind is very restless. In no way can I study it. And Mother says, as the wind removes the cloud, so the name of God destroys the cloud of worldliness. The questioner asks, well, Mother, I have practiced austerities and jopam so much, and I've not achieved anything. Mother, God's not like a fish or a vegetable that you go to the market to buy. Well, the questioner says, well, then how can I realize God? What do I have to do? Is it through worship? Is it through japa? Is it through meditation? Mother says, none of these. God is realized only through his grace. Nonetheless, one must perform japa and meditation to remove impurities of one's mind. As one gets the fragrance of a flower by handling it, or the scent of sandalwood by rubbing it on a stone, similarly, one becomes spiritually awakened by continuously contemplating the divine. But you can become illumined right now if you become desireless. And so this gives us a hint. It's like it's sitting in the presence that turns us into the fragrance of a flower, that we become a sweet aroma in the world. It's by repeating japam, which is what? It's enjoying the presence, because the name invokes presence. You think of milk, you think of milk. Milk appears in your mind. I say to you, elephant appears in your mind. So when you say the name of God, when you chant your mantra, the presence is appearing in your mind. The atmosphere is growing in the temple of your heart. And you learn to sit in that presence, and you learn to enjoy that presence. You don't focus on saying the name, right? When I'm calling you, I'm not calling your name so that I can sit there and repeat your name while you're in the room with me, right? I call your name, you come, and I'm with you. I enjoy your presence. I say what I have to say. I think what I have to think. We do what we have to do, or what we want to do. And so your japam is that. Become aware of the presence and pause and savor the presence. Enjoy the presence. Enjoy God as your beloved for a moment. And that might mean you stop japam for a second and you sing a song, or you pull out that poem that you wrote to come to the shrine with, excited. And say your poem, recite your poem, that flower, that cool rock you found, that purple plastic hippo you found. And you put it on the shrine. I had a purple hippo on my shrine for many years, actually. I just thought God had given it to me because I found it on a walk. And I thought, that's cool, purple hippo. I kind of did it as a joke, because on the shrine, please don't be offended by me, but there were always so many things on the shrine that I didn't know anything about. There was Shiva, there'd be Kali, and there'd be all these deities and lions and whatnots there. I thought, oh, purple hippo belongs there. So I added my purple hippo to the shrine, and it sat there. And this is what it is. This is what it is to play with the beloved, to be the child you are. You're always a beginner, right? Swami Brahmananda makes that wonderful statement. He says, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the highest attainment that we can imagine, think we can imagine, is just the beginning of spiritual life, he says. Just the beginning. So understand you're always a beginner. You're a child. So be a child. Don't be afraid to be a child. Don't be terrified of misbehaving. Don't be terrified of offending. You have the perfect parent who's there running to find you, whose love is infinite, whose wisdom is infinite. And so sit in that presence and learn to accept that. Stop being ashamed in the shrine. Stop being afraid in the shrine. Stop being too meticulous in the shrine. Share your freedom. Trust the Lord to be big enough to love you. Sit there, and you may have done the most heinous of things during that day. And you go into the shrine, and the first thing you say is to Mother, I know your grace is enough for me. And that's your confession. Not I did this and look what I am and oh my God, I'm so sorry and blah, 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 blah. I know I've done this 10,000 other times, but I'm really sorry. I mean it, really I am. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this again, right? No, you don't do it. That's faithless. That's ignorance. That's foolishness. You sit in the shrine and maybe all those things are in your heart, but you turn to the Mother and you quietly sit there and you say, I know your grace is enough for me. And you build the rest of your spiritual life on that foundation. I know your grace is enough for me. And it will inspire every good thing that comes out of you. So we don't practice to get, we practice to enjoy, to sit and soak in the hot bath of God's name, as it were. In the gospel, the master says, it will not do to simply express the idea in words. Only when you assimilate it will it be well with you. When the heart becomes pure through the practice of spiritual discipline, then one rightly feels that God alone is the doer. He alone has become mind, life, and intelligence. We are only his instruments. Right? So he says this idea, you can't express ideas in words. You can't sit there and just say things and think you know them because you can define the word or because you fit it into the puzzle of your philosophy. Right? That's not the point of this. When God tells you, I love you with an infinite love, it's your duty to trust that. How can you trust that? Right? Sri Nisargadatta, says the difference between him and the guys that were asking him questions was that when his teacher said, thou art that, he said, I believed him. You think you have more to do, right? When Mother says you can have your realization right now, just become desireless, right? We're like, oh, desireless. Immediately we're like, oh, I have to give up this, that, and the other, right? There's a wonderful movie about Ramakrishna called Jai Shri Ramakrishna, or Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, I think is what it's called, on YouTube. And there's a wonderful scene in there where Girish Ghosh comes to the master drunk. And he comes to the master because he wants to have the intoxication that he sees in the master. In the previous scene, Girish is talking to one of his friends saying, God, I drink so much and I enjoy that intoxication, but there's this Paramahamsa that I saw the other day who was more drunk than I've ever been. He said, that's the intoxication I'm trying to get. So he goes to see the master and he tells the master this. He tells the master, he's like, how this intoxication that you have, it's so thorough and so blissful and so full of joy. He says, I've been trying to get that my whole life. And Ramakrishna says, well, you've come. Yes, we can do this together. And Girish sits up and he looks at him kind of surprised and he says, well, I have to quit drinking. And Ramakrishna literally, this is his response. He laughs and says, oh no, that's just an external thing. Mother will remove that when she wants, when she's ready. Right? And what did that do? That told Girish, my grace is enough for you. Be where you're at. Be honest in your life. And knowing that your relationship with me is going to move you past that when the time is right. Mother will take that. That's what it is to not be the doer. To not go and be like, oh my God, not drink. Oh man, oh my God, that's 2 days. Oh my God, oh my God. What am I going to do tonight? Gritting your teeth. It has to be through inspiration. Right? You can't cut the fruit before it's ripe. You have to come within yourself and understand that this has not given you the bliss that you wanted. And here is the man who can. Here is the woman who can. Here's the divine that can. And it's sitting in their presence like he did. And he drank. And he continued to drink for much of his time with Ramakrishna. And he would stumble into Ramakrishna's presence drunk and abuse him, yell at him. The devotees were furious. After he stumbled out one day, the devotees were like, why do you let that rascal in here? Why do you tolerate his abuse like that? It's offensive. And Ramakrishna said, be quiet. You can see nothing. You have no idea what I see. That's how the Lord feels about you. Let the people at the temple judge you. Let the people say what they're going to say about you. And understand that Ramakrishna would move you behind him and he'd say, you know nothing. You have no idea what I see. That's learning to trust in infinite love and unconditioned love. And you look at Girish's life. He took Garawa before he died. Became a monk. So assimilate this love, trust this love, absorb this love, and know that it's enough. that at this moment, if you died and grabbed the grace of the beloved, it would be finished for you. Even if you had 1,000 other things still to do, if you had that kind of faith, that kind of trust, if you had learned of that kind of love, you would be fearless in the face of God, of the divine. When the heart becomes pure, what is that? The loss of me and mine. Right? It's the loss of you thinking, I have to do this, I have to make this happen, I'm responsible for this. It's surrender. So your relationship with God, your practice is an act of surrender. You lay down all that you think you have to become, all that you think you have to do. And you remember the very first truth Thakur said, you are not the doer. And so you surrender your doership. You surrender the idea that I can. And then you're not surprised when Mother does. In I am that, Sri Nisargadatta is right talking about his own state. He says, I am in my own state, timelessly in the now. Past and future in the mind are in the mind only. I am now. And so your time with the beloved is about right now. It's not about what you did yesterday or what you have to do tomorrow, not what your plans are happening, not what the boss said in the office. Right? I've made it a big principle in my life. It's turned me into sort of a irresponsible idiot at this point, but I'm waiting to be moved beyond that. This notion of being only present, being right here, right now, and not allowing that which is not here and not now, not allowing that to infect my here and now. So I'm not here thinking about another time, another place, another event, another something. I'm right here in this room, and all the things that I'm worried about are not in here. No politicians in here, no congressman or congresswoman in here, no boss, no angry friend, no spoiled child. It's just me in this room, me and you, beloved. And so you sit there in the moment, being the I am, present, not letting the narratives of that unripe me and mine infect your moment. This moment is God. He is the isness of this moment. And so you surrender into that. You absorb that. You're fed by that because you are always here and now. And if you keep your mind in the here and the now, your problems come to you one at a time. But if you let the not here, not now infect your here and now, you've got dozens of problems infecting your moment. So you stay present, take them one at a time, work on them and offer them. One after the other. To be, I need no past and future. All experience is born of imagination. I do not imagine, so no birth or death happens to me. Right? If you can be in this moment right now, I do this weird practice only because Vivekananda said that monks should think of death every day. And so I do this thing at night, and I lay down, when I lay down to bed, I imagine that I'm in an old folks' home. You know, I figure I better get ready for that. You know, here it comes. And I think that I'm laying there, and I'm like, I imagine that I'm never going to get up again. And I try and be okay with that. And it's not hard if you can stay present. I'm here. I'm now. I'm comfortable. I'm warm. I don't have to do anything else. I just stay right here. If you think about, oh, I'm going to get bored, that's not here, not now. Don't bring that in. Oh, I'll never be able to do this or that again. Nope, those are things from the past. Those aren't part of your present. You stay pure. You stay present. And then when the body does drop, you'll watch it. You won't feel that you are dying. Because your here and now is still your here and now. What's happening is the body's going silent for the first time. What a refreshing feeling that's going to be when it goes silent. The mind is going to go silent, but you're here and now, and you watch the mind go silent. And when the mind for the first time in your life is silent, and the body for the first time in your life is silent, then this myriad of gems that Ramakrishna talked about, that laid about the entrance to your heart, become apparent to you. The gift of forever becomes apparent to you. A love that's not separated by egoism, which was in your mind, is no longer separated from you. For the first time, you know what it means. For the first time, you can accept it. This is to be present, to be here and now, to the extent that life or death are immeasurable. They have no effect, because the here and now is eternal, as you've experienced. The here and now we're in right at this moment is the same here and now that Jesus walked in. It's the same here and now that Buddha that meditated in. It's the same here and now that the rishis wrote the Vedas in. And when Vivekananda says, by the Vedas, no books are meant, he was telling you that. The Vedas are in the air of this moment. All of the world's scripture were simply distilled from the present, from God, from the divine. And you are that and in that right now. As is a man's meditation, Ramakrishna says, so is his feeling of love. Is that your experience of meditation? That feeling of love? Because that is what manifests at the name of God. Because that is what God is. Love. And so your experience of your meditation should be an experience of love. It should well up in you. It should fill your atmosphere in the shrine of your heart. And it is what spills out of you when you leave the room. Still in the here and now. You go to the office, you're still in the here and now. You're still chanting the name. And that's what people feel around you. Because you're always pleasant. You're always caring. You're always giving. Why? Because you're full. You're present. And that's what spills over out of your cup, out of your being. As is a man's meditation, so is his feeling of love. And as is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. And faith is the root of all of this. This knowing, this faith in the present, this faith in God. From the Christian scriptures, in the Psalms, we have that famous statement, be still and know that I am God. You know, in that one statement is the whole journey. Just drop one word off at a time. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know the I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still. Be. Whole journey of spiritual life in one sentence. No doing, no panicking, no shame, no fear, no retribution, no problem. Here and now, my beloved. To the degree that you feel love and are love, to that degree you know. To the degree that you can be unselfish, that you can let go of a body and mind that are always noisy and always needy, to that degree you are free. Go forward. We'll stop there.
Question.
Yes.
You talk about here and now,
Uh-huh.
and so how do you practice here and now? Like, what steps?
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a good question. The practice of here and now, there's several ways to get there. First of all, it's no thought. The only real way to be present is to have no thought in the mind. Why? Because we live always on the last thought of ourself, right? With the ego, that sense of me and mine, is built entirely of the past, right? And it's expressed through thought. All thought is egoism. All thought is egoism. And so when you silence the mind, then you can be present, because all thought happens in the past. Right? You can't, by the time you formulated the thought, the moment that inspired it is already gone. So you try and come into silence. How is that? You can follow your breath, right? The Sri Nisargadatta says that this world is created anew every moment. And you see that in the story of Adam and Eve, which is another lecture I won't go into. But the other thing is that when God created humanity, when he created Adam, he created the body first. The body was just laying there. And then it says that God leaned down and breathed the breath of life into that body. And Adam became a living being, right? If the world's being created anew, every time you inhale, you're not the one responsible for it, right? You don't have to remember to breathe. The body is doing it. We say, oh, the body's breathing. No, God is bending down and breathing the breath of life into you again and again and again and again throughout the day, giving you fresh life, fresh newness, fresh possibility. And so to come into the moment, feel that breath, feel the intimacy of God that close to you, closer than a kiss. Breathe into you the breath of life. And so just sit and feel that breath, experience presence, experience divine love. Think about those things, rest in them, let them inspire the silence. All kinds of beautiful things. If you can manage to get your mind silent for even this the remotest split of a second, you become aware of so many things about yourself that you've been told by the scriptures, but you didn't know. For the first thing you experience is the sense of no time, your eternity. I always thought eternity meant a long time. Eternity means outside of time, no time. There's no passage of time. There's nothing to measure. That's one of the first things you realize, because if you get to the point where you can have a silent mind during your meditation, you'll find that you can meditate for 4 hours and it'll feel like 15 minutes. Because time is actually only the rate of thought. Time is only the rate of thought. The less thought, the less time. So that's one way. One is your heartbeat also. Just listening to your heartbeat. There's another one of just one that I like to practice is this continual opening. Every thought that arises, I get bigger. Whatever my thought is, I think, don't just think that thought, think more than that thought. Or if I feel myself getting uncomfortable, I try and feel not just what's getting uncomfortable, I try and spread my awareness to more of my body. Anything that interrupts my silence, I just try to get bigger than it. I don't focus in on it, get smaller. I let more information in. I let my view get wider. And I just keep trying to expand, keep trying to expand, keep trying to expand. If I hear something bothering me, I try to hear everything else, not just what's bothering me. Right? The phone rings, grabs my attention. I try and hear the silence around the phone. Right? Yes.
I have a question that I've been hearing right now here that the pure love and everything. And look over here, everybody is over, I might be wrong, but over 35 years old. So we are understanding what you are mentioning this one. How do you teach this concept to our young generation? Because they are the one who is going to take, going forward, the philosophy of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. I read a lot of material from Dr. Wayne Dyer, who been gone to East Side to learn a lot of things, how the Asian countries on the East Side is doing the meditation and what they are doing and everything. how do you teach to the small kids?
Okay,
I
so
tried to
you're asking a
teach.
monk how to raise children. Just understand, you asked for it, and here it comes. It is not yours to give your children a spiritual life. It is not yours to propagate the message and philosophy of Ramakrishna. It is not yours to build your children's spiritual life. That is the mother, and she's doing it regardless of what you say, think, or do. You have to surrender to her. Ramakrishna or Vivekananda says in his lectures on education, he says there are only two things that you need to teach your children. Teach them how to control themselves and how to concentrate. He says, if you can teach your children those two things, Maya will bow down at their feet. They will find God by knowing that you did. They will love Thakur by seeing that you do. They will go to temple by seeing that you love and enjoy going to the temple. They'll sit in their shrine because they'll see the joy on your face when you come out. So you work on your children by working on yourself. You're their parents and they will naturally become you. If you don't like those things, if you're not joyful coming out of the shrine, if you're not positive and beautiful at the temple and giving and loving and enjoying the atmosphere there, they're not going to see that. They're not going to want that. What do they care about Ramakrishna and Holy Mother and Vivekananda? What do they care about that? They care about the things that they see inspire the people around them. They'll come to that in time, if that's their path. It might be their path to become a Christian. Will you then suppress that? Will you then resist that? We have to practice non-resistance. We feed them whatever direction they go. We love them because it's the love that they will always return to. Not the teachings, not the words, not the rules, not the philosophies. There's only one motivating force in the universe, and that's love.
Swamiji,
They will love what you love.
Swamiji,
Yes.
I'm here at home. I want to join in the conversation. What you are saying about just do it, just be in love, set an example. And I cannot agree more with you on this, because as a child, all I remember that my aunt, who was that time about 70, in 70s or so, and as a child about 8 years old, I always saw her sitting every day before shrine and just be silent and meditate, or whatever you want to call it. Just she was sitting in presence of the God. And that left such a powerful, indelible impression on my child mind. And how do I know that what she was doing was also affecting her nature? Because I had two examples of my grandma meditating and grandma's sister meditating. And the one that really impressed me the most was the younger sister, who, after meditating, was so sweet, so loving, so giving. And the other one was also meditating. The moment she sat up and came out of meditation, she was back to her anger and her intolerance and all that. So I had two examples in front of me, both ladies, sitting there regularly meditating. So don't you think, the way I feel, that there is something in every child, what you will grasp from your environment, will you take this side of the person or the other example? And I think I, I took after that second example of my aunt, who was very sweet, particularly after meditation.
Yes. No, that's the thing. Vivekananda says there's only one motivating force in the universe, and that's love.
Yes.
So your children will love what you love, and they will follow those ideals. But this is a great thing. I know many of you are first generation living here, and probably going through tough times at this point. Horrible, but anyway, uh, I've been in the order now for 26 years, and I have a lot of concerns about it, and it'll get me in big trouble if I just openly talk, but I do it anyway because I hope that someone finds some helpfulness. Because I have noticed that our kids at the Vedanta centers grow up, and when they go to college, we never see them again unless their parents are visiting.
That's true.
Right? Then they bring their parents to temple, and I used to laugh because Swami Prabhupada used to enjoy betraying them. So they would come and introduce their parents, and because Swami Prabhupada would be like, "What was your name again? Oh, I haven't seen you since last year." He would always betray them. But see, and I think that it's because we want, I don't know. In so many ways, I see so many of the parents being concerned about propagating the Indian ways and the Indian cultural aspects, the Indian approach to religion and all of those things. And the kids start to associate that with something that belongs to them, right? And I see them coming out and becoming hyper-American. They don't want anything to do with the temple. They don't want anything to do with these gods and goddesses. They don't want anything to do with those clothes and with those, this, that, and the others, right? They see that as something that's been pushed on them and something that is holding them back and wasn't of a practical help because the parents have no idea what these kids are being exposed to in a day at school. And they're preparing them for a life that they had growing up in a culture radically different, where they were never exposed, fortunately for them, to the things that their kids are being exposed to socially and culturally during the day when they're away from the home. And these kids come home and they've experienced the world like their parents never experienced the world growing up. And their parents are meeting them with tools that are absolutely useless for the condition that they're in and for what they're experiencing, and aren't even allowed to talk about some of the questions and some of the things that are being talked about and and even demonstrated in their daily life, right? And so you have to be careful about that. If you really want the children to grow up, with your values, then take the time to find out what they're being dealt with during the day. Let them talk freely about sex to you, about gender to you, about friendship to you, about dating to you, about how to act around the opposite sex with you. You have to open yourself to hear it.
Yes.
I said this once in North Carolina. It was the last time they ever invited me back to speak. All right, I run that risk and I know it. It's like they went straight to Swami Sarvadevananda and said, "Oh, he talked about sex on Sunday. He wanted to have sex education with our children." And I was like, that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be aware of what your children are experiencing, and it's going to be uncomfortable because they're hearing things and talking about things and being exposed to things that are shocking to you. All right. I've got a lot of hands. Let me start here.
Well, I'm from Calcutta, and obviously my parents got initiated by Mataji, Moksha Prana, so
Oh.
tremendous. It was a tremendous experience, but I did not know much because I was a kid.
Right.
But I went along with them, and somehow or the other, those seeds of spiritualism were planted, right?
Yes.
But I did not go to a Ramakrishna mission school or anything, and I have my cousins and stuff who have actually studied Indian school, Ramakrishna mission. They are farthest away from Ramakrishna mission. It's like super atheist, whatever. So the thing is, I'm not sure what works. I think, as you said, the parents, somewhere that practice influence, if they are really doing it from their heart,
That's it.
I think that vibration is of a different
That's,
frequency.
that's it. In my view and understanding at this point, they will love what you love.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think being in presence of somebody like yourself and being there consistently every week or something like that, those things can happen. Yes.
And that trust that you develop with them, you know,
Yes.
and not resisting them. Like if they need to talk about something or they're bringing up something shocking, not to clamp down on them, not to yell at them for thinking about those things or saying those things, to give them a trusting and safe environment where they feel like I can talk to my mom and dad about anything.
And I myself went to a Christian school in Kolkata, St. James, one of the best schools there. And I had the blessing of getting blessed by Mother Teresa for the school. And only at this age, after 30, I'm starting to realize how much I was.
Yes. Yes.
So, now,
Yes. Well, let me take the opportunity to be 60 and say, you're a young man. My first time I'm telling a 40-year-old he's a young man.
Swami, hi, I'm Lynette over here on Zoom. Hi. I think this is a terrific subject. I was very honored to be the teacher of many immigrant children. I mean, from Pakistan, India, you know, Mexico, all over. And the thing that I found was very interesting is the child becomes very empowered when they have command of the culture that the parents don't have. And it's kind of really frustrating because their command of the language, the culture, everything gives them kind of a leg up on being here in this environment. And so I think what your message to the parents is very, very good for them to clue in, find out what they are being exposed to, because there needs to be that communication, because they'll run with it. They'll run with it, you know, and become true masters of our culture, which has its downsides, as we all know. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. Well, that's it, you know. Yes, sir.
So, what I feel that only as a parents, you can do is expose them. For example, I know children, if they ate good Indian food, they remember, even though they've been exposed to all kind of other food here.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they develop some kind of taste like that. But eventually I find that they draw back, and same thing with the spirituality also. Only thing your job is to expose, nothing more than that you could do. And let them evolve and leave it in the hands of the mother or divinity, see what happens. Something I want to share, since you were referring about the woman who really lived life like that. I went to Mexico years ago, and I was met a woman, and she had no passport. She will not go every country. She said, this world belongs to all citizens. Nobody should have no restriction to go any country. If they choose to, she will walk. And she said, that sometimes they put her in a prison, don't give her food, whatever. She said, I don't care. I'm here. I'm going to go. And she exposed herself. So in my feeling is that if people who make real commitment and follow up, just little things they do, it makes big impact eventually. And she was able to travel a lot of countries like that without passport.
Yes, I like that idea. It's the freedom is pinnacle. Freedom is the watchword of Vedanta, and the children have to have also that sense of freedom, that sense of respect, you know, from you. That you give them the space to grow, you give them the space to think differently, you know, and you guide them in it by giving them principles, not rules. giving them principles to work with in their life, to form who they are, not particulars in that sense.
Two announcements. One, I'll be attending the Dive Deep into Sacred Silence with the Swami today, so our RT is postponed until 7 p.m. And Charlotte also has an announcement. I will leave that at the end. Oh, okay, we have one question.
So, Swamiji, when you talk about children being very different, I have a granddaughter who is in middle school in the city of Decatur. And recently, they have put the metal detectors getting into the school, which now takes us 40 minutes to get in every morning versus 5 minutes earlier. And then they do drills in the room. And many times she comes home very scared. You know, she asked me, am I going to live? Am I going to die today? You know, so I never had that question when I grew up. And so I think you're absolutely right. Things are very different here and there. That's
Yeah, even hearing that, it would be different for me. I mean, I never even thought of what these kids have to deal with in a day. Oh my God, I'm so thankful that there was no internet until I was in my 30s. You know, it's like, oh my God, you know, it's like, yes, it is. It is. And, you know, that's why it's ever more important that the atmosphere at home is loving and supportive, you know, and to keep it balanced. Tell them, you know, yes, they're doing all of this. It's a little overreactive. You know, it's not that bad out there. Yes, there are dangers, not to play it down a little bit, but you know that life is going on. See, there was no trouble yesterday. There's been no trouble this year for you. Always keep a balanced view, especially because our media is always preventing sensationalism, you know, and I really saw that in San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco for 27 years, never had any trouble, never attacked, never any violence, never anything at all. And my mother came to visit, you know, and she's quite a bit more conservative than I am. And so she had been exposed to a lot of stories about San Francisco, and she was terrified when she was there. You know, we walked home, it was dark outside. We were walking home from a restaurant, and we walked through the edge of Golden Gate Park, you know. She was literally clutching my arm with both hands, gripping me. Are you sure? Are we safe here? There's no one around. There's no lighting in here. What do you don't walk here alone, do you? Walk here alone. I was like, Mom, I walk here alone almost every night, you know. And so we have to be careful about what we allow to form our experience of life. And in the modern world, it's possible to get an absolutely artificial perspective of reality because we live in an absolutely artificial environment. Your house is temperature controlled, carpet on the floors, everything is comfortable and set for you. You get in your car in the garage, you turn on your music, you set your seats, and your everything's all nice. You get out in the garage at work, you walk into another artificial environment and live amongst cubicles all day long. And so then you reverse the process. Your garage swallows you, you go into the house, and you know, there you are. What formulates your view of the world? The television, you know, the news, not your experience. And we need to really get a balance back and let your life experience teach you what's going on outside. If you hear this horrible news on the thing, don't be all freaked out by what this news is. Look at your experience of the day. Look at the experience of your environment and let that define reality. Imagine that we'd have to say that. Let reality define your reality, not the talking heads on TV, you know, not the movies that are going on.
Swamiji, if I may interrupt.
Please.
So please, everyone's welcome to have lunch whenever Swamiji is done. We have plenty. So please take the lunch.
Wonderful. Yes, Mom.
Swamiji, if I meet you in my dream and you tell me I'm dreaming, how do I wake up? There is no way I can wake up from a dream. It has to happen naturally, right? There's nothing I can do in my dream to wake up. How do I wake up out of the dream?
Yes, well, Interesting question. Ramakrishna says, first of all, if you were really sleeping, it would be easy to wake you up. He says, but most of us are pretending to sleep, right? What we mean by that is that if we were present, just fully here, there'd be no thought. We're simply acting according to the inspiration of Satchitananda, right? Whatever comes to us, Satchitananda responds in inspiration. But most of us are running after something, which means that we're following a narrative of mind, right? So we've had to construct a thought of self, right? We've had to construct an artificial me that exists as a thought within my mind to be related with all the other thoughts that are in my mind. That's the ego self. That's pretending to be asleep because we're not being ourself. We're being a thought of ourself that has a whole bunch of attributes that the self doesn't have, right, in the moment. So if we are not pretending to be something, if we're just being, then you're already awake. If you're pretending to sleep, then yes, you're right. It's very difficult to wake you up, right? Did I tell that story about the little boy with the arm yesterday? Yeah. If you're pretending to be asleep, it's difficult to wake up. So we have to undo our pretense. First, realize, hey, I'm pretending to be, right? Something. These are the attributes. And we can figure out what those are by being quiet inside and thinking only of I am, not allowing any attribute to be added to that sentence. I am, I am. And for the Jnani, that's all he does. Sit there, I am, and I'm not that, I'm not that. Anything that tries to attach to the rest of that sentence, no. For the Bhakta, I am is the name of God. And so it's constantly thinking of the presence and being in the presence and letting that define the moment for you. And that will slowly let you undo the pretenses, the things, these false ideas of yourself. And when they drop off, you're awake. So it's an undoing, it's not a doing. It's a letting go. It's not a grabbing or fixing or doing something. It's a natural process. Your sincerity, your earnestness, and your attention have to be mastered. So anything that you practice should help your ability to hold your attention, to focus, to concentrate, and should not be searching, not creating a narrative. You know, not thinking of things that require you to make a plan for. That's a very spooky one. But once you start making plans and keeping your eyes there, you're living in the future. And living in the future causes anxiety. That's where anxiety comes from. Being present is the only way to find peace, to find contentment. If you're living in the past, you've got regrets and resentments.
There's a lot of subconscious patterns that take hold when I'm practicing the being I am, without my knowledge. And then again,
without your knowledge, when you're not aware, when you've let your awareness wander, yeah. So those things will all become apparent as you silence your inner world. So the subconscious doesn't exist. It's just that your awareness is not there. You don't see those things in yourself. You have fallen into habits that you have not reconsidered. And you've become even unaware of those habits because you have not reconsidered them, right? And so part of going inside is simply opening that awareness, and you begin to see the more and more subtle things that are going on inside of you. And you get one aha moment after another, you know, as you just watch, as all of these things betray themselves, because all of them have to go past your awareness at some point. And if you keep your awareness in the present, in the moment, rather than chasing all the other thoughts and dreams and imaginations out there, you become aware of the subtle stories. And that awareness, again, this is a wonderful thing, and I said it yesterday, but it's so important. Becoming aware of it is enough, because you know what you are. And things that are not you, when they come into your awareness, you're like, not me. They go just like any other thought goes, right? It's our attachments that hold them in memory. And we forget that we're holding them, right? We've put them in our purse and we've forgotten they're in the purse. And we leave them there, and 40 years later, we're open the purse. Oh my God, look, I still got car keys to my car that I sold 12 years ago, right? And so you become aware of that. It's not a big problem. Now that you're aware, you're like, oh, throw those away.
No, it's not as simple. No, I can't throw it away. Somehow my mind wants to hold on.
No, 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 no. Your mind doesn't want anything. You are attached to holding on,
Why?
and you have to let go.
Why and how?
You tell me. First, you have to know why you're holding on to it.
Because it's scary to let go.
What are you scared of? This is the
If
process.
I let go of something, then I need something else to hold on to quickly.
Why?
I don't know.
You do know. Sit with it. You are the one, you are the only person in there. There is no other living being within you but you. There is nothing else in you that knows something that you don't know. You are the knower. You are the only presence within yourself. You just have to sit and watch and ask yourself, why do I have to hold on to that? How is that? What am I afraid of? Is that a real fear? Or is it a reasonable fear? All of these things are part of our practice. It's why we sit and why we sit in silence and why we sit in surrender. We just watch. You don't have to know. You don't have to have a plan. You know who you are. Right? You're that I am. You are Satchitananda. You'll become more and more aware of that the more and more quiet you become inside. But understand, you are the king in there. You hold on to what you want to hold on to. You are afraid of what you want to be afraid of. You find solutions to things you want to be solutions to things. Right? And there may be a tangle in there. God knows there's plenty of room for tangles in there. Don't be daunted. Just sit in that silence and let Mother do her thing. I often will take my own mind and place it, what I call third party it. Put my mind in my left hand. I put Mother standing like the devil used to stand on Bugs Bunny's shoulder. I have Mother standing on my shoulder, and we'll sit there and look at the mind together. I won't use my mind. I'll say, look at that mind. Look at the fear that's in there. And I'll talk. We'll have a prayer going on, a third party, three-way conversation on my presence. What do I do with that? Look, I can't even poke at it. There's terror right there. I can't even look into it. There's so much resistance. Mother will lead you, because Mother is your true self. She is your awareness. And so trust that. And just be aware of it. Don't feel like you have to do anything about it. Surrender it. Say, I don't know where that fear is coming from, but look at it. And the less you resist it, the less you try and push against it, the more it will speak to you. You have to, your mind is a toddler. You have to always befriend your mind so that your mind can trust you, as it were. This is very, very story-like, but you have to treat your own self with respect. You have to watch your own inner dialogue. How do you talk to yourself? Because when you're talking to yourself, you're actually talking to the divine. Would you really be comfortable talking to the divine in the way that you talk to yourself, right? And if not, make the rules. You're in charge. I went through a long period when I got diagnosed with depression in 2008. It's a long journey. It took me 8 years to overcome that. And that was a big part of it, was one, going in and listening to what was going on in me. The first thing I had to accept was that I chose my depression. It served me somehow, right? I had to go in and find out what that was. And that was a very difficult thing to admit, that it served me. And it took me a long time to get that answer out of myself. And then once I was working along that, I began to notice my inner dialogue. I called myself a moron all the time. I called myself an idiot. I told myself how stupid I was. I told myself, I can't believe you did that again, you absolute fool, right? And then I became aware of that dialogue. It had always been going on, but it was normal. I hadn't noticed it. And then I noticed it. And then I thought about this idea. I was like, well, who am I addressing when I talk to myself? I'm addressing the witness, which is God. And so then I found that verse in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13, verses 1 through 8, which is a wonderful verse to read if you want to look it up, where it describes what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not rejoice in evil. Love always hopes, always trusts, always believes. Love never fails. Right? And so I began setting those as the rules for my inner dialogue. Myself had to always speak on my behalf. It always had to trust me. It always had to believe in me. It had to always hope in me. It couldn't delight in my errors. It couldn't delight in making a fool of me. It couldn't delight in hating myself. All those things, I demanded that it obey the rules of love. That took probably 4 or 5 years of a lot of discernment to get my inner voice to actually change the way I thought about myself. After that came this practice of understanding I'm not the body and I'm not the mind. Right? And so I went inside and studied, how does my body, what is my body in my inner world? How does it communicate with me? When I'm sick, how do I know I'm sick? Right? Why does it have to tell me I'm sick? What an odd thing. The fact that it has to talk to me shows me it is not me. So I became very, very familiar with those boundaries and the methods of communication. And then I did the same thing with mind. How do I experience a mood? How do I know what mood I'm in? How does my mind send messages to me? What is it doing when I'm not looking at it? Right? And became very familiar with those inner boundaries. And then I saw that body comes out of mind. And I thought, well, how do they interact? And by learning how they interact, I began to understand how I'm not the doer, because I'm the observer. Body knows when it's hungry. The mind knows where the refrigerator is. And the two of them work it out and feed. Right? I'm watching. I'm not necessary for any of that. And so I came with this very strong awareness of what the self was. It wasn't this religious word anymore. I began to know what it wasn't, right? These things. And the first and most important discovery that I came across from that experience was I saw that all desire arises from body or mind. It never arose from me. And through that, it took me, I would say, between 8 and 10 years before I never had a depressive episode again.
Because you chose not to.
Because I did a lot of work watching. And like I said, that awareness that comes through watching, consciously watching, will fix the problem itself.
The watcher is the listener of the thought.
Yes. Well, you're both. That's another thing you find out, is that thinking is just entertainment. There's nothing you're going to think that you don't already know. The thinker and the listener are sourced in the same self. Right? It's an illusion to think that we have to think it through in order to know it. We have to think things through simply to become aware of our thinking, right? Without attaching to it, just watching. It's self-correcting. That's why it's a realization and not an achievement. You are perfect already. You just have to know who you are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
Yes.
We'll continue the discussion with the inside the monastery. I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I know that you would stay till Friday. So I'm obviously you already made the announcement probably that you are available for private meetings. We really appreciate it. Yesterday also was one of the session, those who were here and just let you know. And personally, I feel that you are quite different from the other songs, what I've seen. And so it's a different flavor of spirituality we get from you. And so we all cherish and look forward to you. And I remember, there are several devotees who come and, when are we going to get a song? When are we going to get a song? And I take this to Swami Sarvadevananda. And he said, you know what? We have already sent Swami Chil Brahmanandaji. He was there for a week. And now, so he's been very kind to us to ask Swamiji to come here. And so this is the time, if you have any questions, just like this, sometimes these questions are better in the private conversation so that you open up and the Swamiji also can. So if you have something like that, please take this opportunity. And I also want to let you know that our center is this time of the year that people write donation checks, and I just want to let you know that our center is supported by all the devotees, and for years and years, and thank you so much. So we are going to send, you will receive a donation request letter soon, probably this week. And so, whatever way you can get, please donate. Because we fund all these swamis who come from all over the US. And if you have seen, there are so many swamis who have come this year, and it's been amazing to all the devotees, and very good feedback from everybody. We are going to have a new project like all this audio video you see, we're going to upgrade it. So we are actually working with the consultant, trying to do it the right way, so that we probably have a TV here or here, we look at it, and then so that we don't have a projector on, because this screen is actually kind of in a way of a fire hazard or fire violation code, whatever they call it. So we are trying to do that. So that's the project we have, and we are looking for funds. And also, we are trying to build a reserve fund, so that if we have a permanent Swami like you, Martin, if tomorrow we are lucky, if the Swami Saradevanji said, oh, Chief Permanent is yours.
Then I would be lucky.
It will be so amazing to have a Swami. So we need to fund the medical bills or the insurance and everything. So that's what we are trying to reserve, the build up the reserve. So please consider donating generously, and it's wonderful to see.
Oh,
Thank you.
All right.
Mommy, tell everybody they can ask you all questions over here. Lakshmi's worried about putting the food back in the oven to heat it up.
We're on our way. We're on our way.
Okay, thank you. That's I'm laughing.
It's funny, I've never been called to the kitchen on Zoom before.